Welcome to Not Stopping for Directions, a podcast for and about dads, especially those parenting children with behavioral health challenges. I'm your host, Michael Carmen, and this podcast is brought to you by the Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. The content included should not take the place of clinical or medical advice and are purely points of discussion for you to consider during your parenting journey. All right, this is Not Stopping for Directions, and this is our third go at our podcast, and our guest today is George Mosley. So welcome, George. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
So I usually start this with kind of the same question, and that is, what are your interests outside of work and outside of parenting? Kind of, if you didn't have your responsibilities stacked up, what are some things you like to do?
Well, I mean, even with the responsibilities, I shoot pool.
Okay.
I've been doing that my daughter's 14, so I've been doing it for 18 years, and that's my hobby. And had the privilege of going to Vegas 5 times now for the World Pool Championship, which is all 50 states plus Japan and Canada. I think it's got a couple of teams in there, so that's something. And it's all happened within the first time I went to Vegas was 2013, and I've been 5 times since then.
Wow. So you're actually competing.
Yes, it's a team. I mean, there's 8 players on a team, and up to 5 people can play. And there's a handicap rule, so you have to stay under a certain handicap.
Gotcha.
And so, and I'm also a recovering alcoholic. In July, I'll have 12 years sobriety.
Congratulations. That's quite a milestone.
Yeah.
12 years is a long time.
Right. Oh yeah, it was. And my daughter's 14, so she doesn't ever remember me drinking, but I remember me drinking when she was just a little toddler. So not even a toddler yet.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm putting on my list, do not play pool with George, because I'm not any good at pool. So I'm just going to scratch that off of my list of things.
That's the thing. We need good players, we need medium players, and we need not so good players to make the handicap rule.
Gotcha. Well, I'm in that last category.
Okay.
So, George, do you work outside of the home?
Yes, I actually work for Pepsi.
Okay.
I think my technical title is AOM, but basically I'm a pre-sale account manager.
Okay. How long have you been with Pepsi?
A little over about nine and a half years.
Okay. Excellent. Well, you filled out a form for us, giving us a little bit of information, and I understand you're a single parent.
Yes.
And, I know times have changed a little bit, roles have changed, but, speaking from personal experience, I was a stay-at-home parent for about 4 years. And I know that there's still a little different look at men sometimes when they're the stay-at-home parent versus the female. And sometimes employers don't understand or look at you a little funny when that's kind of your role. Have you bumped up against any of that, or,
Well, I'm very fortunate with where I work because I'd say I already seen the writing on the wall with me and my wife. I knew things were falling apart, and I seen the direction she was going versus the direction I was going. So I actually went to my job probably 9 months before we separated and said, listen, this is the situation that I'm in. I'm working to try to fix it, but if it doesn't, I'm going to be a single parent and I may need some flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been very good about flexibility with me running the sales route. I drive my personal car. So if I call my boss, say, hey, I got to go take medicine to the school, or my child's sick or something like that, they'll do whatever they can to accommodate to help me. So I've been very fortunate with the company that I work for that's the case, because I obviously know it could be a lot worse.
Sure. Yeah, that's fantastic that they're that understanding.
Yeah.
So are you co-parenting, or are you doing the whole thing yourself? How does that work?
It's probably 90-10, where I'm doing about 90%. Her mom is not. She gets in the picture for a little while, and then she's back out of the picture for a little while.
Gotcha.
And then so it's been tough trying to raise a daughter without a mother, but luckily I have enough friends in my life, and she's got friends that their mothers have kind of stepped up to the plate
Hmm.
and kind of helped out a lot. So, and her mom, we've been separated for 4 years, going on 5, I think. Yeah, 4, yeah, somewhere around between 4 and
Hmm.
5. And so I've pretty much, and before she left, I was still pretty much doing it on my own. She just lived here, so um, there's obviously challenges to a dad trying to raise a daughter. I mean, I was, I'd say I was fortunate when I was raised. My dad raised me and my 2 siblings because my mom left under pretty much the same criteria why she
Wow.
left. So I was able to watch a man raise kids, but he did the best he could with the situation he had. So I've tried to improve upon that, where I played baseball from the age of 7 to 19, and I can count on one hand how many times he showed up to a baseball game
Hmm.
because he was worried about keeping a roof over our head, keeping food on the table, that kind of thing. Where my daughter actually plays basketball and soccer, and I do everything I can to be there for her
Right.
physically and everything. So I could probably go get a second job to make
Hmm.
my finances better, but that would take away time from her. And I
Gotcha.
know how I felt as a child playing sports and my dad never being there. So my mom would show up to the games, but my dad was just, I mean, he was my role model growing up.
Right.
So it was kind of tough. So I looked at that scenario like, what didn't I like? So I tried to improve upon that. But what I did like, I tried to go with that also.
Right. So I wonder how much you've talked about Pepsi being, you know, very flexible with you with your scheduling or with what you need to do for your family. Do you think, looking back when you were a kid, do you think your dad didn't have the ability, just in terms of his employer was rigid and wouldn't let him, or was
Well, I mean,
something else going on
he
there?
he was a mechanic, so he actually told his boss. I remember the first day he went to work for West Side Toyota. They said, has anybody got any criteria or whatever? He raised his hand and says, I'm going to be late. They said, well, tomorrow? He goes, no, every day. I got 3 kids that I have to get off to school, so I'm going to be late every day. And they were like, okay,
Hmm.
then do what you got to do. But he was a master tech. He was very good at what he did, so he got that. But he would work. He would have a full-time job during the day, and then he had a 2-car garage in the backyard that he would come home and work on cars at
Yeah.
night when he
Right.
got home. I mean, I would literally go to school in the morning to go ask him for lunch money, and he'd be outside in a car working on it or sleeping in it because he fell asleep in the middle of working on it. So
Wow.
so he didn't know what else to do, and I get it. I mean, and now that I'm in the same situation, I get it where you're doing everything you can just to hold on and survive. That what do I need to do to get me to where I need to be?
Right. So what kind of systems do you use, or organizations do you use to kind of help you through this? Are I know Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children, they're the ones that asked me to do this podcast. They're an organization out there, but do you have kind of you mentioned friends and the mothers of her friends, but do you have other systems that you kind of rely on to help you?
That unfortunately, the government says I make too much money to get any kind of assistance. So
Gotcha.
everything I have to do is pretty much on my own. So luckily, I have a sister. I have friends that if I struggle and they notice it, because I'm not really good about asking for help. But if
Hmm.
somebody sees something and directly asks me, then I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling. And then next thing I know, I'll have $100 worth of groceries brought to my house or something like that. I mean,
Oh,
so there's people that I guess I don't want to brag. I mean, I've been a good person my whole life. So when people see me struggling, they people that know me.
right.
So when they see it, they try to help out as much as they can. And obviously they have lives and families and all that stuff too. So, and I'm the same way. If you need something and I can help you with it, then I will help. I mean, I'm not a mechanic by any stretch of the imagination, but one of Harley's mom's friends, or one of Harley's friends' moms had an issue with her vehicle. And like, well, I can do stuff like that. I mean, I'm not great at it, but so to help her out, I kept her vehicle for a few days and fixed what I could fix on it so that she would have to take to a mechanic and charge labor and all that other stuff. So
Right.
if I can help, I help. And I think that's why it gets that whole karma thing. Everything you do comes back to you in one way, shape, or form.
Right. Right. Well, what do you think? What are some things just from your observations that need to change that can kind of help, people in your situation, single parents who, are doing the best they can or are busy all the time, either working or going to activities? Are there things you see that could make life a little bit easier that aren't there?
Um, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things, but I guess I'm gonna do it myself. So I'm afraid to. I'm not afraid to ask for help, but I will push my limits as far as I can before I'm like, oh crap, I need help with this. So I mean, I don't know if what kind of government funding. I mean, I don't even know. I know COVID was really actually a blessing to me because when everything got shut down, I still had to work, but I lost pay. Well, then the government started giving us money. It's like, okay, I need this money to get everything caught up.
Right.
Then I have a half sister whose grandmother was well off and she had heard that I was struggling. So she called me like, George, how much money do you need? I'm like, well, this is what I'm behind. She goes, well, $1,000, fix it. Like it'll definitely get me back on the right track. So she loaned me the money 3.5 years ago and said, don't give me the money back until you're financially back on your feet. So I don't know if there'd be, I did the care, what was it, when the COVID thing was going on and you could take out of your 401k under the care clause or whatever it was, and then defer you could just pay for 3 years, you could pay the interest on it for 3 years versus having to pay it all up front. I did that to try to get back on my feet. But there's a lot of things I did out of my own pocket, I guess you could say, to try to get, so something like that, I guess, would be very helpful. Like, all right, I'm a struggling parent. Yes, I make too much money according to the government, but I have this 401k that I could take money out of, but you're going to penalize me so much for it that that it's almost not worth me taking the money out. So if you're in a situation like I am, where you can say, the government can say, okay, we'll let you take this money out. You still got to pay the money back, but let's break it into 3 payments or 5 payments or whatever it is, because you're still going to be filing taxes every year, so they can get the money back through that. Just something like that. I mean, I think would be very beneficial for people they think make too much money.
So have you ever, engaged in any kind of, the organization that sponsors this, they do peer support where it's just kind of parents with parents, spending time and kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, coaching each other, supporting each other. Have you ever engaged in any kind of process like that? Or
I mean, I've done AA for 11, 12
Sure.
years. So, I mean, that's kind of, I guess that's where I got the foundation to do what I'm doing now. Is I was able to learn in there. These are the things you prioritize, what you need to prioritize. You cover, you need to cut, you fix what you need to fix to get you where you need to go, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah,
So,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
I mean, I know I could probably be doing better, but I could also probably be doing worse also. So,
Sure.
and they say the glass is half full. All you got to do is fill it up and it's a full glass. So
There you go.
I look at it as a full glass instead of a half full or half empty or whatever.
Gotcha.
As long as I continue to fill it up, I'm okay with whether it's going to church or talking to a friend of mine or going to an AA meeting, whatever I can to fill me up spiritually. I think there's probably keeping a positive attitude about everything that's going on, knowing in the end it's all going to work its way out.
Right. Well, it sounds like, George, you really found your way to get the support you need, through an organization like AA, church, through family and friends. You've kind of built your own support network or your own program around yourself to get you through and get you what you need. So that's hats off to you. That's impressive. I think a lot of people in your situation struggle with making those connections. So the fact that you're kind of able to do that and kind of share what's going on with you with other folks, and they're willing to be there and help out a little bit too, that says a lot to your abilities, I guess, as a parent to navigate this stuff.
And I know that was, you bring that up. I remember going to church like right after it happened, and I was talking to people and letting them know what's going on in there. And I was serving at church at the time. I didn't just go to church just to watch the message and leave. I would show up and serve in the ministry. I was in the cafe ministry, so we have a little coffee shop, and I would work in there. And I was just talking to them. And I remember going to one of the leaders one time. I was like, listen, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't forgive her. He's like, I said, they keep talking about I need to forgive her, and I can't. I'm at a point where and what is wrong with me? He goes, George, you're in the middle of it. You can't forgive her right now. You have to go through the process of forgiving her. You can't just say, oh, I forgive her and be done with it. That's how it works. You have to go through the process of building yourself up to forgive her. And once you get there, you'll be fine. But you can, he's like, some people think that you just have to do it. And I was like, well, I'm trying. He goes, no, that you're doing exactly what you need to do. You're talking to people. You're doing what you need to do. You're not trying to conquer it all on your own. You're dividing and conquering by telling different people and getting different people involved. So,
right. It's interesting you put it that way. And I guess it was the conversation, the podcast I had prior to this one, the second one we talked about men sometimes want to jump. They see a problem and they want to jump to fix, they want to get it fixed and jump, kind of leapfrog over all the steps and get to the solution. Right. And I know certainly I can be that way. I want to solve the problem and have it be done, I want to be done with it. And, for most problems that we encounter in life, that you don't get to jump that far ahead. There are steps you have to take to get to that problem solving stage. So I hear what you're saying.
And I think the AA part probably helped me because, you walk in AA, there's 12 steps. I want to do 1 and then jump to 6, 8, and 9 and be done with this thing. Oh, I don't need to do 3 and 4 or what. But and then I learned that process where you got to do it one step. It's why they're in order for a reason. Mm-hmm. You got to do them one step at a time. Because if you try to do 1 and then 8 and then go back to 6 and go do 12 and then come back to 4, it never works out because you didn't do it in the process that many people have done has worked.
Right. Well, you mentioned your daughter being involved in 2 sports and that you are, a part of that. It's important to you to be present. And what are other things that you enjoy doing with your daughter?
It's speaking of blessings, this past weekend there was a race in Darlington and we had no plans of going, but I had a friend of mine call me and say, hey George, I got these extra tickets. Do you want to take Harley? And I was like, sure. So, well, how many tickets do you have? He goes, how many do you need? I said, well, let me get back with you. So he ended up having 4 tickets. So I was able to take me and my daughter and then her best friend and her best friend's mom all to the race. And the best friend and her mom had never been to a race before. And this is my daughter's 4th race, which it worked out really well because it happened to fall on Mother's Day. So it got her mind out of having to spend time with her mom where she didn't really want to, that kind of thing. So, and then of course her favorite driver wins the race. So that kind of topped off everything for her. So, and it was really cold for us.
Well, that sounds like that karma you were talking about before, George. So it's nice that these tickets came to you and that was something you were able to enjoy with your daughter and bring a couple other folks along too. So that's fantastic. All right, George. Well, that's kind of my list of questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to get on a Zoom and talk honestly about your experience as a single dad. I think that's something we're trying to do, is get kind of the point of the podcast is to get a little bit better about talking about these things and being public about them. And I think, dads and men traditionally haven't been great about sharing things that are going on in their lives like this. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that and sharing with the folks who will watch this.
Right. Oh, I enjoyed it. I mean, and I guess, and the last note is, I've always been told that if you keep it in, if you try to conquer the world with it on your shoulders by yourself, the weight's heavy. But as soon as you tell one other person about it, you just split that weight in half. So you're able to split the load, which makes it lighter, and it does help. So I guess I don't know if I've always been this way, but over the last few years, I've been really good at expressing that if something's not right.
Right. All right, George. Well, you have a great evening, and thanks for spending the time with us. We'll let you know when this is posted, and you can share it with all your friends and family.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, George. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.